I will kick us off. We're going to talk all about mailer campaigns, like the bane of most real estate agents' existence. But I'm hoping to give you guys some creativity today, and I'm going to talk very frankly about this particular prospecting avenue. And hopefully, you guys will get both some statistical takeaways as well as some resource takeaways. And we'll kind of go from there. You know what, maybe who uses, tell me a little bit about, if you guys could for a second while we're waiting for people to join, what kind of printing marketing resource do you guys have internally when it comes to Compass? I know you guys have list targeting, but not maybe necessarily all encompassing. Like, I know that you've got different ways to pull lists, but not, can I just go into my system in Compass? You guys are going to have to teach me this part. Could I go into a Compass system and pull a list from a neighborhood, or do I need to have a third-party source for that?
Gotta have a third-party source.
Okay.
So you can get your list from the title company or a company called CoreFact, or once you throw it into Express Docs, which is integrated with Compass, they can get you a list too.
Express Docs is kind of like they're probably the leader out there for like brand correlation, where they'll plug in white label things, and they're able to provide a pretty decent subset of like marketing stuff. That's kind of, actually, I want to say they're on my resource list today. I know CoreFact's one of the tops. I just wasn't sure if there was an internal one that I wasn't aware of that was already proprietary for you guys. So
the problem that I run into, though, is that supposedly we're not supposed to mail to a trust. So once I get a list, I have to go through the tax records to find out what the people's names are rather than the name of the trust.
And you got to follow
the whole spreadsheet.
So there's been the compliance side on me coming out. There's a lot of differentiating background around this, because one of the things that has been generally acceptable to some of like the do not contact rules are like these blanketed kind of marketing piece approaches. It's only recently where we've heard countering opinions about like needing now to pull out, very specific ownership types. So I'm always going to say, like, lean on, obviously, your offices, lean on, who you guys need to follow and adhere to their rules. I think, though, we're going to see, probably as we get into the spring, we're going to see a lot of the companies that are larger companies starting to make those changes so that the lists don't contain some of that data, because there's a feasible liability to them as well, since they are the one performing the mailing services and providing those lists.
Well, but it's recorded in the name of the trust. I can mail them. It's just not supposed to be in the name of the trust. So you have to go back to the tax record and see what their names were before it got moved into the trust.
And we're going to talk about name recognition today too, and whether or not you even want to go that route. Because, I mean, I can tell you half the stuff I get is with the previous owner, right? Like, and I've been in my place for 3 years. And it's like, I still get agents in my neighborhood that send stuff that's like, "Hey, Joanne." And I'm like, "Hey, how you doing?"
Not me. I'm on my list. I'm always working on it.
I love it. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and let's share our presentation for you guys today. If you're just joining us, hello, welcome, happy Wednesday. It's our last session of the 12 weeks. As a reminder, we will not have a session next week. In fact, the scheduled 11:30, I want to say next Wednesday, it's either next Wednesday or next Tuesday, is the actual transition call for all Revenue Roadmap clients that I'm going to be hosting. I'll be running that call. We're going to be talking about just learnings from this first 12 weeks. I'll share with you guys some testimonials, some big wins that we've heard from students. We'll talk about kind of some of the changes and what's going to be new for the next 12-week tracks. And I'll be giving you guys just some helpful tips on how to kind of make that transition and maximize Q2 as we move through the program. with that said, our accountability session today, because this is the last track, it is designed for an all open-ended question session. So if you're like, Mike, I don't really have a lot of questions, it is going to be a Q&A for the entire prospecting track. Anything you want to ask, anything you want to work on, that's going to be your 30 minutes, guys, for that. So you can plan accordingly. So let's talk about mailers today. Couple things I want to make sure that we ground on, and I think you guys will find this format to be fairly reasonable. I want to go through like fundamental habits, right? Which looks like habits is spelled right, rabbits, which that's not correct. So let's apologize for that in a few slides. But we're going to go through some fundamentals. I'm going to talk about some facts when it comes to mailers. I'm going to give you guys some best practice notions, and then we're going to go through some resources and like spend a lot of time on like creative strategy and what can you do to stand out beyond like the boring just listed, just sold like postcard that so many people are used to. So fundamental habits and facts, things you should know. The first two are probably the most important. Number one, if you are going to get involved in this avenue, this takes money and time on a consistent basis to be successful with it. Like straight out, right? It's going to cost you money. It's going to take time. Like this is going to be one of those, like be really urgent with the input and be really patient with the output kind of thing. This is also an acceleration strategy. It is not a primary prospecting strategy. And what I mean by that is that a standalone mailer campaign should never be what you rely on to grow a business. An acceleration strategy means that it should be combined with other efforts to accelerate your penetration or saturation into a marketplace. And it does a really, really good job at that. Okay. So if you have questions today, by the way, please put them in the chat. I'll address them here at the end. We should have a few minutes before we jump to our Q&A session today. Frequency. Everybody always asks about frequency. It should be a minimum, guys, of once a month, a minimum. I think that if you really look at the stats, when you break down like what are the best practices, about every 3 to 4 weeks, sending something out from a mailer perspective, especially if you're differentiating and you're varying what is being sent, isn't a bad strategy. In fact, with as many people that throw things away, dish it into the trash, etc., like that repetition is necessary. Campaign should be given at least 14 months. Like 14 months is the minimum. If you're like, I'm going to do this for 3 months, I'm going to do this for 6 months, I'm going to put some, you're not going to have success. And if you do, it's going to be random luck. You really need to put 14 to 16 months into these things to be able to see a good return on investment. The other big thing here that needs to become a habit, and it could be shifted right over into best practices as well, but I get a lot of agents that are like, well, a mailer is just a bumper. You are correct. It's a brand recognition. It's just kind of a flash hello. People are going to grab it. They take one little glance at it, if they take a glance at it, and they throw it in the trash, right? With that said, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have a call to action there. A URL, a phone number, an offer, a QR code, something that has an attempt for interaction. Because in the actual stance, when someone does start to look at that stuff and they're in that mode of like, I've been thinking about listing or thinking about buying, right? Now they're starting to pay attention to some of those pieces. And if your piece doesn't have like something that's encouraging them to contact you, like call me, free estimates, whatever it is, like that's not a good thing. So you always want to make sure that every piece that goes out, you have a call to action. The other reason I say do those things, and I like QR codes on pieces because it allows me to track. URLs specifically allow me to track. Phone numbers, if it's not going to be your mobile, use an 800 number or something that's, it can be local when I say 800 number, but it's a number that literally just tracks how many people call it. So you can see what is the response rate for this particular campaign. Headers. In fact, Carol and I were, I think it was you. Was it you and I, Carol? We're just talking about headers and like how to address people. We were talking about trusts. Yeah. So when we look at this, like personalized headers, I'm okay as long, I don't really have a position or a stance on whether or not it should be first name, last name. Like, is public record correct? Is it outdated? I find it to be more outdated on the personal name than it is correct. However, a lot of agents will swear by first and last name recognition, because I'm like, oh, this is to me not, you never want to have current resident, right? Because it's like, oh, you don't, like, immediately in the trash, right? Valued neighbor, valued resident, something of those natures, something that correlates, fellow Giants fan. Like, even if I'm not a Giants fan, I immediately like read it. Okay. Anything that's creative that can personalize the header, that needs to be also a standard habit for everybody. Just no current resident. That's the one no. When it comes to cadence, if I were to say, okay, here's a number that you can follow, I go by a 4x4. All right, 4x4 should be your habit. That's 4 months of 4 different pieces, and then you can repeat. So it's not like you have to come up with 14 to 16, like, crazy, creative, outlandish pieces. It's like, okay, month 1, send a market update postcard. Month 2, client testimonial letter. Month 3, invite to a neighborhood event, whether that's an open house, something you're doing, something that the community is putting on. Month 4, just listed, just sold combo, and then repeat with some variation. Like, you don't have to get really, really, really crazy creative with this stuff. Okay. What you need to understand is that repetition of them seeing value add pieces with social proof, that's the 2 most important facets of this. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get into best practices. But that cadence, if you're going to do the minimum of the every month, it's a 4-month window, 4 different types of mailers or 4 different types of communications. And then, I don't mean different communications, you're sending all of these by mailer, but different types of asks and or ideas. And then you can repeat those if you want to, right, throughout the year. And I'm going to give you guys a bunch of creativity if you don't want to do that. Other things, though, that you should know. It takes 12 impressions for them to remember your name. 12. It takes 28 impressions, we've talked about this prior, to correlate you with your brand and profession. So think about that for a minute. An impression is them seeing, right, me visually or hearing or reading, me actually seeing, Carol Munson, Compass Real Estate. That's 1 impression. So 1 piece is 1 impression. 1 email is 1 impression. 1 letter is 1 impression. 1 pass by of your sign in a yard is 1 impression. 1 pass by of an ad that you took out, that's 1 impression, right? It takes 12 of those impressions, guys, for someone to be like, oh, okay, it's Carol Munson, I got it, right? It takes 28 impressions for them to go, Carol Munson's in real estate. And when they think about real estate, they go, oh, I think about Carol Munson when I think about real estate. 28 impressions. So hopefully you guys are starting to see, like, the reason this is an acceleration technique or method is that this helps get your name and your brand in front of people all across the community that hopefully you're doing other things with. You're doing circle prospecting, you're working open houses, you're going to networking events. They're seeing you in other places as well. This will help accelerate then some of those impressions. Okay. Here's a response rate stat. We're going to do a little math here. So hang in there on this. 4.8% is the response rate. Okay. Versus 1% with email. 4% prospecting on mailers, 4.8%, excuse me, so almost 5%, 1% with email. So the rough ROI, okay, on 250 homes at a 14 to 16 month cadence is 1 closed deal or 1 client. That's the expectation. So when people are like, oh, I'm marketing, 400 homes, 500 homes. Okay, well, that's 2 sales. That's 2 sales that is going to generate. But instead of thinking of it as 500 versus 2, what I want you to look at is dollar for dollar. The monthly average cost of 250 homes, and this is all inclusive. This is postage, this is print, this is the servicing vendor fee for putting it all together and to send it out. This includes list acquisition, etc. ranges between $187 and $315 per send. Okay. So if I'm doing one per month, that's $187 to $315 per month. So let's break that over 14 months. Over 14 months, your entire campaign is going to cost between $2,600 and $4,400 for that entire campaign. And it should net you $15,000 plus in net commission, not just gross commission, but that's like net after your splits, etc. Right? That's about roughly what your return on investment is. Now, I don't know about you, but if I could spend $2,000 to $4,000 and it was going to return to me $15,000, like if we could go to Vegas and every time I put $4,000 on the table, they gave me $15,000 back, we would never leave Vegas until literally my name is on that hotel, right? Like that would be a scoring route. Like this works. This has worked since 1960. Okay. But it is something that takes time. It takes consistency and it takes dollars, right? And those three things are the three things real estate agents hate the most. We hate things we got to do all the time. We hate things that are going to take more time. And we hate things, right, that cost money, which is why a lot of people don't stay with it. So if you do those three things, guys, this kind of avenue can return a great investment for you, and it can help accelerate your brand penetration into any community in America, right, that you're also working on. Questions on that so far before I get to kind of the focus of best habits?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I came late, so I might have missed something.
That's okay, Jessica, go ahead.
I have been doing this actually, maybe not consistently. I have to look into that part. But to Lincoln Towers, so like a big 400 person building. I grew up.
I used to live right next door to Lincoln Towers, so I know right where it is.
So I grew up in 165. I go there pretty frequently for my parents.
Yep.
But like, I've gotten some people, but nothing has fruitioned from it. And every person I've really gotten was my mom sending me over the lead. To be very transparent with you. So I'm just wondering, in a building like that, or even any area like that where they're getting, my mom even sends me over other brokerages letters.
How many units are you sending out to, number one?
I'm sending it out to everyone in 165, which is an estimate.
But how many units is that in 165?
That's an estimate of 65. Like 265 to 300 people.
Okay. So there's a couple things we have to look at in buildings that's a little bit tricky or different than sending to a widespread residential neighborhood, right? And I've watched this happen specifically where my doorman gets a stack from the actual like mail person, right, of like marketing pieces, and he literally grabs it and he puts it right in the trash. Like I've watched that happen.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine that definitely happens to my ones I send to the Upper East Side.
And so what I have found, and it's a pain in the butt, but cost is about the same, is that I have been recommended to break up like 25 units at a time, where like you're sending almost every week, but you're sending to 25 units every week versus the 250 every month, whatever it is, right? As you break it up into smaller chunks to see if the deliverability changes. And then you mentioned in the beginning of that question that like consistency was the number one thing that you were like, I mean, without consistency, this conversation is a moot point.
I mean, I probably do it every 2 months.
Not enough. That's not consistent enough. The absolute minimum is once a month. Absolute.
So, okay, I have 2 questions, but I'll piggyback on it later.
No worries. I appreciate that. All right, so let me come back. Stephen, Namita, I'll get you guys here in a minute, okay? When it comes to best practices, right, we always want to combine the mailers, and I said this, with other efforts, other community prospecting efforts, because if I just think that mailers are going to be successful in themselves, it's not a primary solution, right? It's not. It's a secondary solution or an accelerator to other efforts that I'm doing. And so, Jessica, I'll use you as an example. Like you do have another avenue. Obviously, you have family that live in the building. So you can go to events, you get to meet people, even if it's on a minimal basis, there's still the ability for me to be present in that area, right? And there's other stuff around. I understand, But the fact is that when it comes to that, right? If I think that I'm just going to pick a community that's way out of my range and I'm just going to send mailers and people are going to be like, oh yeah, I've never seen or heard of this person before, let's respond, then I really have to get creative about like, what is it that I'm doing to keep that mailer or that piece in front of them, right? So other circle prospectings, other event networkings, other working open houses, making sure that people that you are meeting within that target region, you're direct calling that sphere of influence, right? Because you're meeting people, you're making relationships, friends. Like you want to stay within that community with other efforts if you want mailers to pay off for you. You also need to make sure that you're combining in your efforts value items, things that are actually educating and providing information to people, and social proof. I'm selling stuff, and I'm selling stuff, you know, not necessarily here in your community, but in other places. So that there's proof that I'm successful at what I do. If you are brand new and you don't have social proof, you need to be able to leverage somebody else in order to do that, right? Like you need to be able to say like, this is my team member sold here and we work on this together, even if they're just going to be working on deals temporarily with you. You've got to be able to bridge the social proof. Combining value though also means, guys, making sure that you're differentiating the type of paper that you're sending every time. Like if I just send a postcard every single time and it's 12 different postcards, I'm going to get the impressions, right? It's going to give me some credibility for brand reputation. Like it's going to give that to me. Like I'll get some value there. But what I want is I want a postcard. The next month, I want it to be a letter that they're opening up. That's like either typed. I want handwritten cards. I want pieces that are informative, market reports, things like that are going out. If you're just sending postcards, you're not going to maximize that approach. Your 4.8% will not apply to that. It'll be much lower. So you've got to differentiate those things. Okay. Resources and companies. And this is probably like the top 6. And I didn't put Express Docs on here because they're more of like a go-between. Like you can kind of plug in your brand and everything and Team Workshop and Docs to Express Docs. But Core Fact is great. Quantum Digital is great. Postcard Mania is great. Prospects Plus is probably the one you've seen probably more often at real estate NAR conferences or vendor events. If you've ever used Wise Pelican, it's a little pricey, but Wise Pelican's got some unique things that they can do for real estate farming and for nurturing leads. And then Reminder Media tends to be more of your luxury. Like they've got really high quality print stuff. They can mail out books. They can also target a little differently. But most of these companies can pull lists. Most of them are full service with print and mailer. Most of them also have account reps that can help you understand how to put together a 14 to 16 month campaign where you are going to deviate and move and change your message and change your value piece and change how you're tracking or what your call to actions are going to be. All right. So I'm going to make this entire presentation available for you guys so you guys can have these particular company names, but they're easy to find. Creative strategies. Actually, before I get into this, let me just check my time here. We've got about 6 minutes, so I'm going to hold those questions. Stephen, is your question super urgent? You want to jump in real quick?
Well, just a quick comment on the last thing. Because the last one was struggling with the tower.
Yeah.
I've been doing this since 2012. I love circling, and I'm consistent with it. But something that I really recommend to everybody, if you're struggling with actually seeing positive return on it, make sure you're choosing an area that has a lot of sales. I mean, if one neighborhood's having 30 sales a year and the other neighborhood's having 2 sales a year, you're mailing to a neighborhood that isn't having a lot of turnover. So that's the first thing I recommend doing. And then after that, of course, it's got to be content, quality over quantity for sure. I mean, you do need the quantity and you got to be consistent, but quality is so important or they're just going to throw it in the trash. Agreed.
Thank you. So here's a few unique ways, guys, and this is just different pieces that I've seen, that I've researched. Some of them I've used that have done really well. Puzzler mailers, and I want you guys to understand the concept to a lot of this is to draw them somewhere, right? Like a challenge that says like, can you solve this puzzle? and it's got a QR code. And that's like literally the only thing outside of your brand and name. And the hope is they're going to take their cell phone and they're going to scan that QR code. And you're going to be able to grab that information, at least knowing how many people, right, actually clicked on or scanned that QR code that shows you activation or involvement from that community and that outreach. And then it can have like a little puzzle, and it can say like, for more puzzles, text me or whatever. Recipe cards do really well. They sit around, especially if you send them in like a nice cardstock, like kind of thing. I keep recipe cards all the time. Golden ticket idea. I have a buddy in Denver, Colorado that used to do this like every month. And he would send out literally to 250 homes a golden ticket like Willy Wonka, right? And it would say, you've won a free cup of coffee on me. And all you got to do is contact me and meet me at that coffee shop to redeem. Now, granted, how many coffees do you think he had to pay for? Because it wasn't 250. Yeah, 5, 10 max. But that's 5 to 10 actual meet and greets that he was getting from a mailer, right? Like that's worth its weight in gold when it comes to actually meeting new people and being able to just say hi, introduce yourself, get them a cup of coffee and say, enjoy your day, right? It doesn't have to be like a whole sales presentation. Kids coloring contest, there are a little bit more things, but you can put together an envelope or again, a QR code. It gets people like to submit things. Those are great if you're delivering stuff on weekends. 3D mailers, 3D really just should say like lumpy mail. In fact, there used to be a company called Lumpy Mail out there, and that was what they specialized with, was mail that was not like flat. It was like lumpy. It felt like there was a gift, something in it. It would make you open it. Magnifying glass, see what your home's worth. They all had these like cute little correlations or similes that they would associate with your piece. They're a little bit pricier than obviously a postcard print, but they were pretty reasonable for what we were sending out. Let's see here. I've got a few more, and then I'll close this out here, and we can go to our Q&A. Wait, whoops, I missed. Here we go. Seasonal concepts for the spring gardening tips. Open house season, like sending them a list of open houses that are coming up for a weekend, especially ones that have already been pre-planned. Summer barbecue recipes, event invites, especially invites within their community where it's already booked. You don't have to put on your own event. Like find a list of like 3 or 4 events and be like, hey, here's some upcoming events coming to your neighborhood. I'm your resource, not just for real estate, but also for everything that's happening in this town, in this city, in this building, whatever it is. Right? You're just using that company or that city and town's already scheduled events to send that out. Pumpkin patch maps, football schedules, sports in general, like game schedules people keep, history reports. I had a buddy who used to target older home communities. And I'm not talking about the age of the residents. I'm talking about the actual age of the homes. But he would send pieces like, New York Jets are better than the New England Patriots. I'd love to argue about it. Contact me. And that's all he would send. Like, it's just like an argument piece to generate like context for people. What else we got here? Market predictions, gift wrapping, history reports. There's all kinds of seasonal and sports stuff that you guys can do. I think I mentioned a couple classes or sessions ago that I have people that still have like my Colorado Rockies like magnet schedule with like my real estate face up there because they put it on their refrigerator and just never took it off. Like it's just there. I've been with that brand for 15 years. So lots of different ways for you guys to keep things, I think, accurate and to keep pieces actually staying within, your target audience's reach and whatnot. So hopefully that's helpful. Again, this accountability session, this is going to be open Q&A. I want to say thank you guys. I will be doing the first part of the prospecting track for the next 12 weeks. And I will be hosting, guys, again, your transition call next week. You guys all should be getting invites with just like the little calendar save on it. That call I'll be hosting. So I will see you guys again. But I want to thank you guys for your participation, your efforts, just all the great feedback and what you guys have done and created within this prospecting track in the last 12 weeks. So Thank you guys for coming out. Hopefully I'll see you over at the accountability session here in just a minute. But again, thanks again for your time. We'll see you guys soon.